And welcome to the broadcast. Glad you are with us on this May 12th, 2025. We are back in the Mid-South after our 8 days on the road. And it went so very fast. We got back at 6:30 a.m. Saturday morning. 6:30 a.m. Saturday morning. And our two drivers did a great job taking us through the night from the nation's capital all the way back here to just outside of Memphis. And we got a little sleep on board and hit the ground 6:30. Now it took us about an hour to unload the motor coach, start setting things back up here, getting reorganized, washing clothes, getting all our clothes washed and getting all the things done that have to be done. And we just had to keep moving because I wanted to go to bed. We were exhausted. I said, we've got to get on a regular schedule. So the temptation to take a nap was averted all day, but boy, did I want one. And we just had a great trip. It went so well. I want to thank all of you who prayed for us. I want to thank you for all of you who are supporting what we do. I have to tell you, and I'm going to make this announcement on, thank you, Van. I'll make this announcement as well on radio or TV tonight. You guys haven't seen 80%, maybe 90%. 80-90% of what we filmed, you haven't seen. We filmed so many things that are history, documentation, documentaries, I should say. We're starting a history channel. We already bought the URL, worldviewhistory.com. There's nothing there yet. But we're starting a history channel, worldviewhistory.com. It'll be linked on our main sites. And we're already planning. See, we make the plans, right? And the Lord confirms them, makes provision. But we're making our plans now to return to the nation's capital the middle of September, do some more reporting from Capitol Hill, more reporting from the White House. And we're going to take Bill Federer with us. And we're going to go to Williamsburg and all kinds of places and do more filming and make more documentaries on America's history and heritage. Because pretty much the History Channel has gone woke. And we're going to provide the Christian Worldview History Channel. But we're very excited to start this week bringing to you some of these short and longer format documentaries on what we filmed there in our nation's capital. Going to be great. Great documentaries. You guys are going to love them. Not only there, but of course, we spent many hours at the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio. Filmed a lot of great stuff there. Then the Air and Space Museum at Dulles. We spent a lot of time with the Space Shuttle Discovery. We'll make that into a documentary. We've got so much. I won't belabor the point. I've mentioned it a few times. But we're very excited about the projects we're going to bring you, for all of you to watch at worldviewtube.com as a broadcast ministry. Now, should we make the big announcement about this fall, Logan? Here's what I need to know. Hope you guys will grab a piece of paper and a pen. We're thinking about doing a Worldview radio rally in Des Moines, Iowa on a Saturday night, and then on Sunday night at the Corn Palace. We've already talked to our venue in Des Moines, and we've already talked to the Corn Palace this morning. So we're thinking around sometime in late October, a free Worldview rally in Des Moines, Iowa on a Saturday night, and Sunday night at the Corn Palace. So if you would like us to come there, if you would be willing to drive there, because look, it's not good enough just to have the locals say, oh, we'll show up, particularly in South Dakota. You guys are spread all over that state. We need you to say, yeah, I'm 3 hours away in southern Minnesota, but I'm going to show up. Or wherever you might be. I'm from, Sioux City, Iowa, but I'll show up down to Des Moines. We need to hear from you. We need to take a pulse. We need to take your pulse. Because remember, we stopped doing these Worldview rallies 7 years ago, and we started back with Milwaukee, April 15th. I said to my wife yesterday, I said, I didn't even think about that, but do you realize that was almost 7 years to the day? So almost 7 years to the day from the time we held the last one. So we took a 7-year hiatus. So we're thinking about Des Moines, and we're thinking about Mitchell, this late October. Brannon, Brannon, Brannon at worldviewtube.com. We're thinking about myself, Dr. Woods, and Leo Holman. What do you think? Email me if you guys would attend. Give us an idea. And then we'll know. And if we get no response, we'll say, there wasn't any interest. No interest. Moving along. I don't think that's going to be the case. I pray it's not. Brannon, Brannon, Brannon at worldviewtube, TUBE.com. Let me know what you think. Okay? But we're planning to go back to the nation's capital in middle of September. We're already booking things up as we really try to film as much as we can to get this Worldview History Channel off the ground. Let's see what else can I report to you. We got some great interviews at worldviewtube.com before we go to Aaron, because President Trump is heading off to the Middle East. And there's all the controversy over this plane out of Qatar. We got some great interviews at worldviewtube.com with Congressman Glenn Grothman, 6th District of Wisconsin, U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Chip Roy of Texas. All that is at worldviewtube.com. The interview by Glenn Grothman and, of course, Senator Ron Johnson should be of particular interest to a lot of our audience, because so many of you listen in Wisconsin, and that's one of your U.S. reps, and that is one of your 2 U.S. senators. So I hope you guys will listen. Here's what else I would ask you to do. When those guys are moving around the state, would you go up to them and say, hey, thank you. Thank you for being a guest on the program of Brannon Howse. Thank you for being on Brannon Howse's program. Okay? Thank them. Because it's very important that they hear from you when they come on our broadcast. Because you know what? It makes it very easy for us to get them back. Because they're like, wow, this guy has a following. He has a very friendly audience that appreciates my going on there. Let's go back on that broadcast. I cannot tell you how important it is that you folks tell your state rep, your state senator, your U.S. senator, your U.S. congressional representative, whether we're talking Chip Roy, Marjorie Taylor Greene, any of them that we interviewed. It's very important when they're moving throughout your state that you tell them, drop our name. Thank you for going on the program of Brannon Howse. That's very important, because that's how we get them back and have a regular contact with our elected officials, okay? Very important. And of course, everything's going AI, and I'm concerned that eventually we're gonna have a government that's run by AI. And you can't walk up and talk to AI, but you can walk up and talk to your state or your U.S. representative out of the House, your 2 U.S. senators. So I'm very concerned about this whole government by AI, but I'm afraid that's coming. I really am. I don't know how far off it is, but I'm afraid it's coming. Let's see, what else can I tell you? Friday, we didn't have a radio show Friday, right, Logan? No. Let me tell you what we did Friday. We walked all over for the second day, Arlington National Cemetery filming. That was Friday? Oh, we did have Friday, so you know what we did. Wow, the days all just run together. All right, well, we already told you that then. I guess there's nothing else I can... Oh, I do want to say this. President Trump has put out an executive order, and this is a big deal. He's going to lower the drug cost drastically lowering the drug cost. By some cases, 80%, maybe 59% to 80%. You got to hear this, folks. Is this going to play for me, Logan? You got to hear this, because I said to my wife yesterday, there are going to be a lot of Democrats, a lot of whatever they are. Some people don't even know what they are. They just hate Trump. There are going to be a lot of Republicans, uniparty, rhinos, Democrats, whatever they are, that hated Trump, who are going to say, you know what? This actually impacts me. I said to my wife yesterday, you know how many people on a fixed income are trying to decide whether to buy food, pay for the heat, pay for the AC versus paying for their medications? These medications, some of these prices are ridiculous. And they're having to choose between paying their heat bill or buying their medication. And I say, there are going to be a lot of people that have hated on Donald Trump. They're going to say, wait a minute. When did a president ever do this? I said that to her yesterday. And ironically, I think it was this morning that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. had this to say at the White House with the president standing next to him. Almost the same thing I just said to my wife yesterday. Listen to this.
I have a couple of kids who are Democrats, are big Bernie Sanders fans. And when I told them that this was going to happen, they had tears in their eyes because they thought this is never going to happen in our lifetime. And we finally have a president who's willing to stand up for the American people. Thank you. And Dr. Oz.
Well, and you know why he's willing to do it? Because he's not beholden to the drug companies. He's not taking their money. He didn't take their money to get elected. Most of them are bought and paid for by the drug companies and all the other special interest groups, which, by the way, Mark Mitchell, who'll be one of the keynote speakers at our October 3rd and 4th Worldview Weekend, Friday night and Saturday. We have the Thursday night banquet here in Collierville, Tennessee, outside of Memphis. Very safe, upscale area. Middle class, it'll be like going to Waukesha. I keep stressing that because people say, is it safe to come to Memphis? Is it safe to go to a suburb of Milwaukee? Is it safe to go to a suburb of Kansas City? Is it safe to go to a suburb of St. Louis or Chicago? It's the same thing, people. Don't buy the lie. Most of the crime here, I'm sorry to say, it's black on black. It's drug dealers on drug dealers. Okay? But you're not going into those areas anyway. You're not going into the areas run by the drug kingpins. This is a safe area. Collierville, Tennessee, Germantown. In fact, Tommy Tuberville, the former Ole Miss coach, U.S. Senator, we told him, hey, we're from Collierville. He's like, oh, I love the golf courses there in Collierville and Germantown. But he wouldn't be golfing here if this was, he had to dodge bullets. So don't buy all the hype. But Mark Mitchell is going to be one of our speakers. He's with Rasmussen polling. He did a new poll, said if this holds up till Thursday, talking about the polling, we're going to have a new record. Right direction, quote, right direction, meaning the country's going in the right direction, has never been this high. Never. And of course, President Trump is working things out with his tariffs, with China. So, good news there. Good news on many fronts, my friends. Now, when I come back, I want to address real quick all of these Marxists that got into physical confrontation with ICE, and then go to Aaron for an update. And let me ask you this, who is Israel's biggest enemy? You might be shocked at my answer. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. Hey, consider going to MyPillow.com right now and get your pet a pet bed, just like my beloved Delta has right here in my office. Not only can you get pet beds, but you can get sheets, towels, blankets, and so much more. Slippers, sandals, robes, beach towels. It just goes on and on. But please, go to MyPillow.com and be sure to use the promo code B66. When you do, not only will you receive savings, but a generous percentage of each purchase comes back to continue supporting this 24/7 free broadcast outlet. We need your support. Hey, look, we're entrepreneurs, just like my friend Mike Lindell. We all need your support, and you're getting quality products at the same time. So please, go to MyPillow.com and use the promo code B66. Mike always has amazing specials going right there at MyPillow. So check out whatever those specials might be today. You never know, Mike's always changing it up and making new offers right there at MyPillow.com. But be sure to use the promo code B66. All right. What about these the ICE officers these Democrats got into fisticuffs with last week? Here's the issue, folks. Double standard. Double standard. Supposedly there's an article out now. DHS says they're going to arrest, they're going to delay. DHS says, if I can get the arrests are on the table for lawmakers. I'm going to get I've been texting with City Powell so we can get her on tonight. DHS says arrests are on the table for lawmakers after ICE detention center incident, which I think included some pushing and shoving. Did it not, Logan? That seems like to me an insurrection. Don't you think, and I think City Powell's right, they should be hunted down and homes raided like the J6 defendant. Trump was elected to end the double standard. They should have been arrested on the spot. Well, Sydney will be one of our other speakers this fall, along with Mark Mitchell, Alex Newman, and others. But this is such a double standard. Many of those people that are arrested and spent 4 years in prison never even they didn't even lay a hand on a police officer. They just walked into the Capitol and calmly walked back out. This double standard has to end. By the way, if you want to get, what's that? Look at the bookmark tweet. All right. If you guys want to get registered for that fall conference, by the way, there's only 350 seats available. It's worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. Oh, wow. Just in, group of woke faith leaders, put quotes around faith leaders, are actively blocking the entrance to the Delaney Hall ICE Detention Center, New Jersey. The same facility that multiple Democrat leaders tried to break into. Interfering with immigration enforcement is a crime. Yeah, it's a crime. All of them, I think, should be arrested for insurrection. So sick of the double standard. These Democrat, Marxist, Islamists can do whatever they want, and next to nothing is ever done to them. Oh, and by the way, on the Islamic front, what's that coward's name down there in Texas that's the governor? Greg Abbott. Useless governor. He likes to tweet. He's a big, tough guy when it comes to getting on X. He's had how many years to do something about the border as the executive of that state? And he only did something when the political winds got so strong. He had years to do something about Colonial Ridge, where the illegal immigrants were making, Todd Bensman and Michael Yon flew over that with a helicopter months and months ago. We've been talking about that for years, where some guy's selling these plots to these illegal invaders, and there's very little code enforcement going on. And they want to say fake news. No, it's not. We have the videos. He didn't do anything about that. You're telling me they didn't know that this facility where these illegal invaders were buying lots and building these shanties? He didn't know. This area is so big, you got to go over it with a helicopter. But the governor of Texas didn't know about it. Did the governor of Texas not know about all these white tents to house supposedly the illegal invaders that we've pictured and shown with drones from Muckraker and Todd Bensman and Michael Yon and others? He let that go on in Texas, which many thought was really detention centers waiting to maybe use under Kamala Harris if she got elected. He's had years, 13 years to do something about Epic and Yasser Qadi's group. And now he wants to tweet about it when the winds again are strong. Remember, this is a guy who's really, I think, nothing more than a World Economic Forum guy. But there seems to be now enough traction going that Ken Paxton, the Attorney General that we've interviewed many times in person and via technology, Ken Paxton, who I think is running for U.S. Senate, is he not? Against John Cornyn, who we saw, by the way, in D.C. last week. We saw him. No, we did not walk up because I had no interest in interviewing him. Thank you. Now, there's criminal investigations going into that Epic Center in Texas with Yasser Qadi. What else do we got? I think that's probably about it for now. Let's see here. All right. Now, before I go to Aaron, we will tell you something now. For over 2 months, we were emailing the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. for over 8 weeks, leaving a voicemail with the press department for over 8 weeks. When that didn't work and they wouldn't return emails, they wouldn't return phone calls, we started emailing the ambassador's office, leaving voicemails on the ambassador's voicemail. On the administration's office, whatever they call it, voicemail. We said, look, we're on 74 Christian stations, we're on TV, we're a Christian Zionist group, we have a reporter on the ground in Israel. We would love to interview your ambassador in D.C. Now, I understand they're busy over there in Israel. And maybe they didn't have time for us, and that's fine. We understand that sometimes the schedules just don't work. But you would think they could be professional enough to return an email or a voicemail and say, thank you. We appreciate that you cover Israel, that you are countering the lies and the propaganda about our nation state. And we would like to try to make this happen. Or we won't have time when you're here, but are you coming back? Acknowledge the fact that we, for 8 weeks, we're trying to get a hold of you. You can't take a minute and return an email or a phone call? You guys know I hopped up on my soapbox before October 7th and said that Benjamin Netanyahu was opening his country wide open to an attack because he's too busy kissing the ring of Joe Biden. Remember me? Twice. I got pretty heated. And I know it shocks a lot of people who are not Christian Zionists like me. When I say certain things, they get shocked or like email me. I can't believe. Good for you, Howse. I know I'm not a Christian Zionist. I know you are, but wow, I really appreciate the fact that you are telling it like it is. Yeah, I don't want boots on the ground in Israel. Sorry, I got to be consistent. Israel, you're wealthy enough. You got more oil and gas you probably know what to do with. And if you need money, just go over there. Just go over there where Solomon dumped all that treasure and work with our buddy with Rob Lindstead and start digging. You'll have more money than you know what to do with. Qumran. Start digging in Qumran, and I'm pretty sure you're going to find stuff that is trillions and trillions of dollars. So A, you don't need our money. And B, no, we're not sending you our troops and our treasure and our kids to die. Because I know you're not going to send your IDF over here, nor would we ask you, nor should we, to spill their blood on our soil fighting the cartels and the Islamists in our country. So no, I'm sorry. I am a Christian Zionist, but you guys can do it. You guys can take care of yourself. You got the ability. You got the weapons. We can sell you planes. No, we shouldn't give you any money, and we shouldn't give you stuff. You got money. We got our own financial problems over here. So I'm a Christian Zionist, but I'm also common sense smart when it comes to what I'm willing to pay, what I'm willing to do. So this might shock you. Israel's biggest threat is Israel. Israel's biggest enemy is their own government. Who's America's biggest enemy? Our federal government. Boy, you go back and you watch what U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville said and what Senator Ron Johnson said. Those two U.S. senators, independent of each other, because they didn't even know we interviewed each other. You know, one didn't know we'd interviewed the other. Both of those men were so frustrated at the corruption, the criminal activity and the corruption in Washington. Both of those men are self-made in that God provides everything, right? Every good and perfect gift comes from the Father above. But we use that word self-made, meaning those guys went out and earned it, built a business, got in the business world. Tuberville was in the sporting world. I'm sure he made very good money doing that. They pay very good when you get to that level. And good for them. And those guys aren't the type, I don't think, to be bought and paid for because they don't need it. Kind of like Donald Trump. He's not bought and paid for by the pharmaceutical companies, which is why he can do the things he can do, which is why Ron Johnson and Tuberville are saying the things they say. They're not bought and paid for, from everything I can tell. And they see this corruption. But the greatest enemy to America is the federal government. The greatest weight around our neck is the federal government. And then it's your state government. Maybe your local government. In that order. Full of grifters. Full of money laundering. We saw the country. One thing about not flying is you see the country and you see what's going on. You tell me with the amount of taxes we pay in America, they can't keep the roadways clean. They can't keep the interstates clean and the potholes patched. My coffee sitting on the table, I'm sitting there working, jumps 2 feet up in the air. Why? Potholes. For the amount of taxes we pay at the local, state, and federal level, there shouldn't be one pothole anywhere on any interstate in the United States. And every side of every interstate should be clean. No. That's because most of the people elected are crooks. Whether they know it or not, whether they intend to or not, they're voting for things that steal the money from the taxpayer, divert it to special interest, divert it to supposedly humanitarian purposes, charitable purposes. That's not the purpose of government, is not charity. The greatest threat to us is our local, state, and federal governments that are out of control. So I'm not saying anything about Israel that I'm not saying about our own government. But Israel's greatest threat is their own government and government officials who don't even seem to acknowledge when they have friends. You're telling me the embassy couldn't send one email saying after 8 weeks, hey, Mr. Howse, thank you for reaching out to us. We appreciate the fact that you're a voice for truth and setting the record straight, and you got a reporter in Israel. We appreciate you. And thank you for reaching out. And we don't have time. Or maybe it'll work in later in the year. But we want to acknowledge and at least know I'm your contact. You know what? We got that in the White House. We emailed the White House. And guess what? Our government is bigger than Israel's. And yet there are government officials in the Trump White House got back to us right away. And then said, if you would like to interview President Trump, here's the person you need to email. And we emailed them and they got right back to us. And their dialogue is started. We said, we'd like to interview Vice President Vance. Person said, this is the person for that. We emailed them, they got right back to us. There are other people I won't take time to mention. We'd like to start a dialogue and maybe interviewing them, either this trip or the next. They got back to us. But this little bitty country in Israel's got an ambassador who apparently has an inept staff. Why does this make me angry? Because we are busting our desk. Every day we're busting it here at this desk. And they can't even acknowledge their friends. No wonder they're losing. They're their own worst enemy. We'll be right back. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. Is the government tracking you? Do they have access to all your data? Well, if you go to worldviewtalk.com, you'll find out about a cell phone company that, well, does not store your data. They don't do that. This is what they're known for. They don't store your data. You have privacy. You're not being tracked. That's why a lot of folks are turning to worldviewtalk.com. You'll find their prices are very competitive. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com. Again, worldviewtalk.com. Oh, while you're there, not only do they have cell phones that aren't tracking you, you can find out about how to get a satellite phone. Should the whole system go down and you want to communicate with a family member or a loved one, you might want to have a satellite phone. Or how about their solar generators? They have great solar generators. Check them all out right now. Worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com. All right, welcome back. Glad you are with us. Let's go and talk to our reporter on the ground in Israel. Aaron Lavarco joins us. Aaron, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, Brannon. Shalom. Good to be with you.
Shalom. I want to go, first of all, I brought you in a couple weeks ago. I said, Aaron, this is ridiculous. The U.S. government is so big, and our land territory, you guys are like the size of New Jersey, and yet we're getting response from the White House like within minutes. Boom, here's who you have to talk to. Here's your contact. Here's their phone number. I mean, boom. Your guys, nothing for weeks and weeks. Couldn't even return an email. Couldn't even have the professionalism to return an email or a voicemail. And I'm thinking, we've been out here holding conferences on Israel and Holocaust Horizon 2017, Holocaust Horizon 2018, talking about Israel for decades. And I told them who we were and where they could look up VCY America, Worldview Tube, here's our footprint, here's our long history. And I'm thinking, how can we help you if you won't help us help you? And this goes back to what we talked about pre-October 7th. I've never seen a country that I've dealt with more on as far as reporting that seems to be chasing its tail all the time. I think I'm starting to believe your government, there are those in your government that allowed October 7th. I'm starting to believe some of them knew it was going to happen and they allowed it to happen. And they want to draw us into a Middle East war, and they don't care if Americans get killed. And I think your Mossad probably has a deep state that's probably as corrupt as our CIA that doesn't care how many people get killed as long as their objectives are met. Now, this is probably shocking for the strong Christian Zionist that I am, but I know the hearts of men are increasingly evil, says the prophet. And I know some of these institutions, they don't care about Israel. They care about their own agenda. The CIA doesn't care about America. They care about their own agenda. And I'm starting to say one reason your country's losing is because you guys don't even seem over there, not you, but your people in your government don't even seem to realize who your friends are. You know how much heat we take? I mean, we had a guy from Saudi Arabia with a gun come into our conference because we're standing up to this. And your government, clearly as smart as your government is with your technology, knows who we are, what we're doing, what we're saying. They know who you are. We told them who you were. We gave them your first and last name. We told them where you live. And we said, research this guy. He's our guy on the ground. We're taking hits and threats, standing up for your people, your government, your country. So at least have the courtesy to get back to us. Nothing. Nothing. If this is the way your government treats its friends, no wonder your country is losing more and more friends. If it won't even help themselves or help us help them. Do you understand my frustration?
Yeah, absolutely, Brannon. And I apologize. I really feel terrible about it. I feel embarrassed. And what I would say in response is, I wonder if it really is the government, or just like in the United States, if you have people in positions, in top positions, even though they're representing the government, like you mentioned, they may have their own agenda. And there may be people in the embassy that you wrote to, Brannon, they may have their own agenda, and it may not be the government's agenda. They may be loose cannons. We've seen that recently. The Mossad, the Shabak, which is like the FBI. We have people inside that are totally corrupt. In fact, the leader of the Shabak just stepped down recently. He was asked to resign, and he did. He had to step down. So it is embarrassing. And that's why people like you, who are very similar to our right-wing politicians, they are pressuring Bibi Netanyahu. They are keeping the heat on. So what I would say to you is, don't give up. Keep that heat on. Keep pressuring them. And you know what? Even follow up with a letter, a kind of a letter of rebuke. You know, hey, I've written to you. Why are you not responding? But don't give up. Whatever you do, and hopefully sooner than later it will fall into the hands of someone.
Well, and I want to make very clear. I'm not frustrated for my sake. I'm frustrated for the sake of other people like me who are trying to help, that are getting the same response. I'm frustrated for all of us. And I'm frustrated for you and the good people in your country and the good Israelis in our country who we were up on Capitol Hill, okay? And I haven't had the chance to show this video footage, but while we were up there on Capitol Hill reporting, there was probably 200 Jewish people outside the Nancy Pelosi caucus room in the Cannon building. And these pro-Palestinian people came up there with their keffiyehs on and from the river to the sea t-shirts, which means genocide, clean the Jews out of Israel. And about 6 or 7 of them, we filmed it, came up there as a so-called religious group and stood there with their signs and their keffiyehs right in the front of all of these probably 200 Jewish folks that were there to meet with their representatives. And it was offensive to me, and it scared some of those Jewish folks. And one of them I met was a rabbi from Beverly Hills, and we had a great conversation. He knew a lot of the people I work with, and I told him about you. And I'm frustrated that your own government doesn't seem to want to help some of your own people on the ground here in America, who, when something happens in your country, get back on an airplane and put on a uniform, and they won't even help the friendly pro-Jewish state of Israel media outlets in our country where your people reside. I mean, how tone deaf are some of these bureaucrats? They wouldn't even respond to you.
Right. You know, Brannon, one has to understand when we talk about a Jewish state, in many ways, it's almost like looking at the Christian church in the United States. When you use the term the Christian church,
yep,
that is a loaded term.
Yep.
There are so many different kinds of Christians within the Christian church. We know that. Different denominations, different streams, liberals, pro-Palestinian Christians, replacement theology Christians. Well, in Judaism, among the 8 million Jews that live in Israel, we have exactly the same. We have Zionistic Jews, we have socialist Jews, we even have Marxist Jews. We have all kinds, and those that are very liberal, that want to go back to October 6th, they want to still work for peace with the Palestinian Authority. So you're frustrated. Think about us here also. And let me remind the viewers as well, go back to the days of the Bible. We very rarely had peace among ourselves.
Yeah.
There was the United Kingdom. It did not last for long. It only lasted for 30 years. Then there was the split, this divided kingdom. You know, there were 14 Judean kings that were assassinated over hundreds of years. So nothing is new under the sun. We have, even in the days of Jesus, the split. Historians say that the main cause of the destruction of Herod's temple was hatred without a cause, hatred among ourselves, the infighting, the different Jewish
So it kind of goes to the idea of a house divided against itself cannot stand, right?
There you go. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I waited to bring this up just to see what happened, but I just thought I can get the White House to respond and get what we need. We can get the U.S. Capitol to respond, get what we need. I mean, boom, 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 boom. But no, we can't get anything out of the Israeli government. And I'm like, they can complain all they want about all the things they complain about all the time, and rightfully so. But if they cannot help us help them, they should stop complaining. They should just be quiet, because they're clearly not interested in having help. And I don't trust Benjamin Netanyahu. And I think I said that before October 7th. And I don't think, at the end of the day, from what I'm hearing, I don't think Donald Trump trusts him. And it is time for this war to get wrapped up and Benjamin Netanyahu to retire and get off the stage.
Well, you know what, Brannon? I was saying when I was with you in Capitol Hill that we're waiting for Trump's visit to Israel. Well, have you heard? He's not coming here now.
No, this is news to me. When did this break?
Yeah, no, he's coming to other places in the Middle East, like Saudi Arabia, like Doha, Qatar.
Well, what does that tell you? He is fed up with Benjamin, okay? I can tell you from the sources I'm hearing, he is sick of Benjamin Netanyahu. And I am too. And that was before October 7th.
Well, this is, look, here, but let me just add another side to this. And I don't want to downplay what you've just been saying, but let me tell you, these Muslim nations, they are masters at pitting people
Well, I'll give you that.
themselves. And it could well be, Brannon, it could well be that it's the Muslim nations like Qatar, who, a short time ago, Donald Trump hated Qatar.
And now they're offering him a $1 billion jet.
That's right. But don't be surprised that there's the carrot. I was just going to say, there's the carrot. He's making peace deals. He's getting money. He's making armament deals. And it could be, and there's rumors and there's reports in our news that he is throwing Israel under the bus a little bit. But I don't know.
Well, here's what I would say to that. Benjamin Netanyahu, what goes around comes around. You threw Donald Trump under the bus. He was still fighting for the results here in America, and you were putting out tweets within hours congratulating Joe Biden on his supposed victory when we were still trying to make sure that this was a clean and fair election, and Donald Trump got thrown under the bus by Benjamin Netanyahu, which again, since then, I stopped trusting that man. Look, the word I hear is he's the Israeli Bill Clinton, that he's really only interested in himself, and he can't even keep his marriage covenant.
Yeah. Well,
so how do you cut a deal and work with a man that can't even be faithful to his wife? That's a question. And if Benjamin, you don't like it, come on my show live and debate it with me. But I got pretty good sources that say you're not a very moral man. So how do you negotiate with a man like that?
Yeah, you look, you're not the only one to get frustrated. We've got a whole sector of our society that are out on the streets now, totally frustrated, totally angry with him. And in the meantime, we've had some big news today with the release of one of the captives. And by the way, he was an American Israeli. And that, of course, is opening the door for criticism from a lot of people towards Netanyahu by saying, okay, we're happy that he was released, but he was American. This was to appease America. Bibi, what are you doing for our people? What are you doing for our captives? So, yeah, there's a lot going on. And
well, this guy was held for 583 days. 583 days, unites with family.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they've released any pictures of what he looks like, but I can't imagine.
Yeah, you just passed it. Go back, there he is there.
Is that a recent picture?
That's no, that's before he was
yeah, I would like to know what he looks like after 583 days.
Yeah.
How someone survives this, I don't know. Wow. But again, here we go. Let's release him as President Trump is headed to the Middle East, right?
Yeah.
So let's come back and let's talk about what do you think President Trump is after in this visit? And now we find out that President Trump isn't even going to touch down in Israel, which there is more frustration behind the scenes, folks, than the White House or others are letting on. But it's leaking out.
But with Brannon, it's always cutting edge stuff happening in the world. And it's not just from the political angle, because you can get that on other platforms, but it's always from the biblical angle. So you're dealing with a guy that loves Jesus, you're dealing with a guy that's very intelligent, you're dealing with a guy that is cutting edge conservatism, and you're dealing with a guy that wants to be biblical all at the same time. And so for that reason alone, I hope many, many people will not just lift up his ministry in prayer, but will also financially get behind it, because from the angle I'm trying to describe, he really is the only game in town. And we desperately need it in these last days. Can I get an amen to that?
Okay, welcome back. Here's the picture. Emmanuel Macron, I guess, reportedly meeting with the leader of Syria, Al-Qaeda leader. Isn't Benjamin Netanyahu banned from going there to France? but they'll accept this terrorist.
Yeah.
You know, I keep finding myself turn around defending Benjamin Netanyahu because that's the right thing to do in some situations. But again, it's kind of hard to help a government that doesn't even seem to want to help itself in some regards. Aaron, what do you think President Trump is going to try to accomplish with this Middle East trip?
Do you remember he said about 4 days ago, Brannon, he said, I am going to come out with some of the biggest or one of the biggest news or declarations or statements or decisions in decades. We're waiting to find out what that is. Now, I texted you and I said there was word out on the street that he's going to declare a Palestinian state. Mm-hmm. Now, that has been refuted by Ambassador Mike Huckabee and others. So it doesn't seem that it's that. What I'm reading and hearing in the news here, Brannon, what I'm sensing, I think he is definitely trying to get more trade. He's trying to strengthen the American economy. This is very big. Let's not forget about the group of nations called, BRICS.
Yeah.
This group of nations, they were primarily got together to try and weaken the American dollar. And so I think he wants to strengthen the American dollar. And that is, to me, that's his main strategy in coming to the Middle East. That's why he's gone to these very rich, oil-rich nations like Qatar, like Saudi Arabia. And I think there's going to be some pitting nations against others among those negotiations. I think he's going to offer some promises of protection if these nations side here and there. Do
you think there's any chance that his schedule changes and he touches down in Israel?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just about to say, Brannon, you read my mind. Listen, you know the old saying, good cop, bad cop, right? Where, you get someone being interrogated by a real bad cop and he just about beats the living daylights out of him. And then the good cop comes and says, hey, listen, have a cigarette, have a drink. I'm here for you. And so I think I wouldn't be surprised after all that we've just said the last 10 or 15 minutes. Who knows? Maybe Bibi and Trump, maybe they've got some strategies behind the scenes that we know nothing about, because Trump doesn't play all of his cards. He on one hand, he speaks his mind. He just lets it all out. But on the other hand, he can be very, very strategic. Mm-hmm. So I think you could be right there, Brannon. I think he may change his mind. Hey, maybe there's been some security tip-offs that have said, don't declare that you're coming, and then at the last minute, we'll fly you over.
Well, but there also seems to be some disagreement between Benjamin Netanyahu and President Trump on this war in Gaza. Trump has been putting out some tweets that basically say it's time to stop this and wrap this thing up. And Benjamin wants to keep going, right?
100% correct what you've just said. But then I read today an article, Trump is saying, I am not stopping Israel do what they want to do in Gaza. So it's almost like there's a double message there. And I don't know whether Trump, because he does know at times how to play the politician. He is a businessman, but I think he's learning at this presidency to play the politician. And I wonder if he makes those statements against Israel fighting in Gaza to appease some of the Muslim nations like Saudi Arabia, who are also calling for a stop to this war. And Egypt, believe me, Egypt and Israel is in the worst place we have been for decades. In fact, just today, Brannon, the Egyptian president, Sisi, he has now refused the Egyptian ambassador to Israel. He has not green lighted it. And the other, he has rejected Israel's suggestion of its new ambassador. He's rejected it. In other words, he's breaking down diplomatic ties with Israel. This is a very serious situation. And Egypt also is turning away from America. I reported on that the other day. They've been doing military exercises with the Iranians and with the Russian. No, I'm sorry. That's not correct. With the Russians and with the Chinese. This is Egypt I'm talking about. This has been a close ally for over 50 years. They're right on our border. There are troubles there. So going back to your original question, what is Trump getting out of it? I think we're in for a few surprises, and I'm still waiting for this big decision that Trump said he's going to declare any day.
Yeah, I think that was the pharmaceuticals. We're thinking here that was his announcement about the pharmaceutical drugs, but maybe he's got one related specifically to the Middle East. I don't know.
Well, I'm sensing that it's not. I don't know. I simply don't know. But the way he said it, the biggest decision.
Yeah, and that was his next. Yeah, and then that 3 hours later is when he put out the one about the pharmaceuticals.
Well,
he said my next truth will be huge, blah blah blah, and then 3 hours later came the pharmaceutical one.
Well, he made it out that he was waiting for. He's going to wait a few days at least before he comes out with this decision.
Well, let's hope. Let's hope. But I do pray he does not recognize a Palestinian state, and I think that's all been put out as false news because Huckabee has said that's never going to happen.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. After rumors were coming out that he was going to make a declaration, then Huckabee and others were saying, no, the idea of a Palestinian state, that's over. So it's like there's double messages going on here. But again, the fake news. And Brannon, I've been reading reports by Israeli scholars and psychologists. They have been breaking down by examining. They are saying that Hamas are absolute masters at pitting nations against nations and bringing division. And one of the things that they've been doing is trying to pit America against Israel, and they are succeeding. So we need to be careful. And you know what? One of the ways they do it, they play on the emotions. For example,
we got like 15 seconds, less than that.
Yeah, by example, they say we're going to release a hostage. They get the nation of Israel's emotions,
and then they don't do it. All right, that's our program. Take care.
This has been.
And we're back with WROS out of Jacksonville, Florida, and Worldview Tube. So you and I agree that Hamas, they seem to be the masters at manipulation, no doubt about it. Here, by the way, is some footage. I know the radio audience can't see it, but here's some footage of the American Israeli being released in a caravan. So it's great to have him home after being held over 500 days. Again, I don't know. I don't know how somebody survives that. I really don't.
No. Well, he's going to go through the typical protocol of releasing a hostage. He'll go to a hospital. He'll get a medical checkup, and then he'll spend time alone, being interviewed, getting psychological checkups as well. He'll go through the meeting with the families and everything. I was listening to his grandmother. And then the first thing, Brannon, they allow the released hostage to do anything they want. It's part of the healing because they've been confounded to being the absolute opposite, with not allowed to make any decision, any freedom. So that is the first step where they will be allowed to do anything they want. And it's part of the step forward in the healing.
Well, we're so thankful for that. All right. So tell our audience before we conclude here, Aaron, you had a little bit of a tough time getting back, right?
Brannon, that's the understatement of the 21st century. I had 4 flight cancellations, and one of them actually worked out great because I came to Washington, D.C., and I was supposed to get a connecting flight. You didn't even know that I was there. I don't know. You phoned me.
I did.
I just I just landed in Washington, D.C. I had about 7 or 8 hours till my new connecting flight. And I told you, and you said, well, you couldn't have chosen a more perfect time. So you said, come over to Capitol Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you'd never been to D.C. before.
Never. Very impressed. Amazing. But then I had 3 other canceled flights. And finally, I was able to get back on El Al. And when we landed, Brannon, oh my gosh, everyone who, we're talking about quite a few hundred Israelis on that plane. Everyone had been through exactly the same experience. We were just overcome with emotion to get back home. So it's great to be back. But I'm telling you, literally 3 hours later, Brannon, I was back at home. Massive sirens throughout the city. There was missiles on the way. Everyone running to the bomb shelters. Back to reality. Then watching the news, watching the tension leading up to the hostage release. Brannon, there's a big shift going on here. Big shift. The nation is absolutely fed up with this war. And they're
in other words, they want it over. They want it done.
They want it over, but they're fed up with Bibi, and only because he's the head man.
So what percentage? What percentage of the country's tired and sick of Bibi like I am?
It's hard. I really don't know
60%?
the answer.
60%?
I honestly cannot answer that question. It's so difficult
but
to know.
But it's not a 20, 30%. It's a high percentage.
Yeah, but it may not necessarily be, strictly at Bibi. He's the head guy. Of course, everyone's like Moses. Everyone's
but he's kind of a troublemaker at many levels. I mean, he's got his son over partying in Miami while other Israelis have their children dying and the same age.
Yeah, Brannon, I totally agree with that. But let's not forget that these other 58 hostages, they are surrounded in tunnels by absolute every inch booby-trapped with the most sophisticated booby traps, and they're surrounded by suicide bombers.
Right.
How can our soldiers realistically get into that? They're doing all they can. And
I agree with that. I'm just saying Bibi is not he's not good at optics. He's very poor at PR. He's horrible at PR and he's horrible at optics. And one of them is having your son in Miami partying while Israeli men are dying. Okay? So he's horrible at optics on many levels we could go into. And so I'm saying is, again, he's his own worst enemy. But answer this as the music plays. Who is standing in the wings to take control that could unite your country and get things back on track?
I honestly don't think there is anyone right now, Brannon. I don't believe so. It's not even an issue right now. It's not even the time right now. We've got no choice but to get behind him. Of course, there are people that want to pull down the government. Now would be a disaster for that to happen. But there's no one else standing at this stage at all. There's no one even close to him. And that's the thing, Brannon. People want him out. People want to pull him down. They want a new strategy, a new plan. But what is the strategy?
Yeah, but what is the strategy? Well, again, he's horrible at PR and telling people what's going on, keeping them informed. He's a mess. He needs to retire and go on when the time is right. All right, that's our broadcast. Aaron.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon Howse.
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Manus Live.
It's really what the Britfield series is all about. It's to counter all of this. It's kind of the opposite of the Harry Potter, which was really just to bring, witchcraft and black magic and occultism in the hearts and minds of children. And it's a $34 billion franchise and counting. Star Wars is a $68 billion franchise and counting. So really countering a lot of those narratives. That's what we're doing. And the thing is we could sit here all day and complain about what's out there. And look, evil's evil. And there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, this stuff's been happening not just for decades, but for centuries. You always have an evil satanic cabal that are pushing really what are communism. It's divide and conquer, and pushing and promoting this stuff. Nobody's interested in it, by the way. It's not even 1% of the entire population, although they want to make you think it's 10 to 20%. Not even 1%. And it's really a complete terrific. It's very unnatural. It's ungodly. So what we need to do as a nation, and what we need to do as a global nation, and a global brotherhood and sisterhood, if you will, is push back. Number one, don't buy it and complain and go for alternatives. It's just like the educational system right now, at least in the United States, we're in an educational reformation. Just like Martin Luther 500 years ago. And we're seeing the last days of the traditional industrial model of the public school system. And that's obviously horrific in many ways. There's great teachers out there. And so God bless you, you know what I mean, for the teachers that are fighting the good fight. But you're seeing a massive homeschool revolution. We've gone from 5 million to almost 20 million homeschoolers in the last 4 years. That's huge. And the best, most well-rounded and educated kids I've ever seen are homeschoolers. So those are some things that you can do. If you have a problem with it, do something about it. Don't allow them to push you with fear, but push you into action. Counter it. Don't accept it. Call them on the table. We need good people. We need good teachers. We need men and women to get on these boards and these certain things, start their own companies. There's a huge gap out there for the independent entrepreneurs again. I think we're in a renaissance right now. We're in a creativity